Good afternoon, traders. This is Christian from Traffic and Trade Group, and this is your end of day market recap for Tuesday, June 11th. Risk disclaimer in front of you. Everything that we're going through is for information purpose only. Not giving any advice or recommendations. Please read the full risk disclaimer there. Wow. So look at the performance today. There's a couple concepts that I'm going to go over in today's video. Really exceptional moves out of tech. The Qs were up 70 basis points for the day, so getting close to 1%. But there really wasn't that much craziness outside of tech today. Uh, Solar did quite well today. We'll talk about First Solar, but the XLK technology ETF was up 1.9%. And it also reminder that we started in the negative today. So that rallied 2.1% for the day. Now, outside of what the Qs did, SPY finished like a very subdued up 20 basis points, and the small caps finished down again, down 0.3 of a percentage point. So when we talk about like overall market breadth and names, whether names are overall for the market, whether names are going up or going down, the majority of names are kind of going down. And you could see this by the midday note that I send out right around 1 o'clock every day. And I do tally these up, right? So I go through and I count names and I sort them. But here's the S&P 4-week new highs versus new lows. And you can see that. So this snapshot was taken at 1 o'clock today. 23 new highs, 81 new lows, like not even close in terms of the amount of names that are going down. But here's the takeaways from this. And I know this is small to print when there's that many names, I have to shrink down the font a little bit. So I apologize because you can't see the names, but it is what it is. I try to fit them all on one screen, but certainly from the new high list, it's, even though it's not a lot of names, it's dominated by tech names. Those are the majority of what you're seeing there. And then if you kind of carry over here to the names that are making new lows, there's a lot of financials on this list. There's a decent amount of both consumer and staples and consumer discretionary. What you don't find is tech. So tech is not, tech is by far and away the strongest sector right now. And if that's a group that you like, and if you're a growth trader, you're probably not complaining about this market. I've talked about this a few times now, but it is very concentrated right now into tech and into growth. And if you look at just, and this is big tech, obviously, but if you look at the XLK ETF, and I'm going to talk about Apple in just a minute, but if you look at the movers today, now there were other names besides Apple, which is good. But and this got better as the day wore on. But these are your names that are doing really well, because outside of tech, there just isn't a lot of groups that are going up. I did see software made it into the green today, up about 1/3%. Biotech also was up about 0.5%. But again, that's pretty decently away from where tech is. And so yeah, let's begin to kind of talk about that. So I just kind of wanted to go over the market structure with you, just to kind of let you know what you're dealing with. And again, like if trading tech is your thing, and a lot of growth names, then you're okay with poor breath, because there's a lot going on within that group. All right, and I think that the good thing too is a lot of these names are fairly liquid too. So let's talk first about. So let me go to the indices first. And sorry, as I'm going to get to Apple, I promise. But here's where we are. One of the observations that I was making earlier today, and I made this, I think, this morning, was that since last Wednesday, remember last Wednesday was this big trending day, like right in here, right? So if you go back to where we were, like even this morning, you could kind of make the conclusion that we haven't gone anywhere. The overall market hasn't gone anywhere since last Wednesday. And again, I'm talking about the overall market. It's not to say, if you viewed yesterday's video, that I talked about, the theme of that video was pockets of strength, right? I talked a little bit about the solar group, tech and the semiconductors. I talked a little bit about the retail group, right? And I think one or two other areas too, that I mentioned as well. So there's certainly pockets of strength out there, but that's what the S&P is doing. It's kind of has for the last week has basically gone sideways. Now, The Qs were doing that too, up until about this afternoon, and we took off at the end of the day and made new highs. Really impressive. A little bbit to do with that, I think, is the bond auction today too. Yields were going higher, although you can make an argument that that the Qs are less affected by what bonds are doing. But this is nice to see that this bond auction today, 10-year bond auction, was not a disaster, and there was actually some demand for it. So you had a nice reversal. Well, I shouldn't say reversal, but TLT was up just slightly green for the day, but a reversal, I would say, back above the value areas. So that's the major stories, like in terms of the indices and what you're seeing. And I what I find, and I started a tweet about this about a week ago with just showing you what the Qs versus IWM is doing. And it's pretty remarkable because if you go back, years and years, you've got this nice green bar with the big outperformance of Qs versus IWM. Remember, Qs were up last week. Qs were up decently, I think around 2% last week, and IWM was down over, well over 2% last week. So that's a, difference of over 4%. And again, if you look at this, this is the weekly chart that I've got up for you. But if you zoom out, you could see, and like you have to go all the way back, I think, to like the year, yeah, like all the way back in here. So we're above those previous highs. Again, just pretty crazy. All right, so let's talk about Apple. I think this was highly interesting what happened with Apple today. Now, let's zoom back in here a little bit. There's If I double click on that, I don't think it's going to work. Well, let's go to the daily chart first. All right, but what I was saying yesterday, and oh man, still doesn't like it. I think as I stretch this chart too much. But here's the break of about a year and a half of sideways price action. So to me, that's really interesting. We kind of stopped right at the top of value, which is 192.69. So again, remember what these value areas are. This yellow box, right? And the volume profile here. And again, if we go to the weekly chart, you'll be able to see this a little bit better, right? That volume profile is based on all of the activity from last year. So we put roughly, I'm not going to give away the secret sauce here, but it's roughly one. So this box, right, the value area for this year is basically roughly one standard deviation of all the activity from last year, right? All that volume at price. And this is the, so this is powerful resistance and support. And by the way, like we came down and that was the support level that I tweeted about several times earlier in the year, and price held that. And now we're above this. So regardless of what you think of that event yesterday, the institutions apparently like it, and they're the ones who drive the market, right? And a lot of the broker reviews too were that, hey, they can, possibly monetize that. People are going to have to upgrade iPhones. You could believe that, or if you could believe that if you want or not. But if institutions are buying, it doesn't really matter, right? They're the ones who are going to make the price go higher. And if they think that there's something really interesting going on with Apple, you've got a level to trade a breakout here, which is 196. Now, that's about 5% away, but that's not a bad stop to use if you're looking for like a longer term type trade. And I have to say that this is very positive to see a breakout like that. Such a clean breakout of the value area and that previous range. So that was the big name today. I did not trade Apple today. And by the way, like the other thing was there was a humongous amount of option activity, again, which just shows you that the institutions want to get involved in that name. One name that I have been watching for the last couple of weeks is Arista Networks. That made the turn here. I thought it might catch eventually, the 50-day moving average and bounce. It kind of did a little bit of back and forth price action, but that's a pretty darn nice move. So I got long this name today, even though I really didn't want to get long anything new today going into tomorrow's events. I managed that with taking off some other existing trades because I like the setup and Arista Networks. And then I think the other stock of the day was First Solar. Oops. for for solar. Sorry, I'm having some technical difficulties. So again, look at the Virgin point of control takeout. That again is where you see either a lot of consolidation because that was an area where there was a high level of volume previously. So that told you exactly where like that price was probably going to pause, right? And perfect move there. And then, a leg higher here, and look at that activity up 5% for the day. Again, not a lot of areas were up that much today. So, I was watching for this break of the value area. I did get long this name. And I tried going long solar last week, and I'll bring up that chart next. It fell below the 200-day moving average. Today it got back above the moving average, but yesterday I decided to get long right in here. I took a target up here, and notice the little breakout. And again, this is a great way to trade with the value areas. Sometimes I get questions that like, "Hey, what's a good strategy to trade with the value areas?" So again, this is on the 1 hour chart, but you could use this strategy in any of the whatever your time frame is. But here's your break of the value area, and here's your retest. So nice, cute little retest, and then boom, higher, right? I know a lot of serious traders talk about that breakout and retests, and that's sometimes where they add exposure. And that's actually what I did today. I added into a little bit of weakness today. And then as we went higher, I took off that target, that add into strength today. So very nice move today. Also, the semi group, like, that seems to be, I like this applied materials chart a lot. I actually bought some of this. I did not hold it through the end of the day just because I think you have to pick and choose. But man, look at this applied materials coming out to new highs. Very nice. All right. So again, I'll keep this video kind of short. Tomorrow, listen, I don't know. I don't crunch numbers in terms of inflation and what the components of inflation are, but I think this is going to be interesting that the expectations are, I want to say this appropriately. The expectations are very high for a low print, right? Because if you look at this previous, so again, maybe they know something why they set the bar all the way down to 0.1%. But if you look at the past reports here, so far this year, there's been a point 0.3, a point 0.4, point 0.4, point 0.3. So I don't know where they're thinking point 0.1 from, but maybe inflation is that the rate of inflation is coming down. We didn't have a negative, a positive point 0.1 reading since all the way back in October. So I think that's going to be very difficult for the market to beat. But again, I'm not crunching the numbers. It just seems from like a very like face value situation. A lot of people are also talking about some of the, besides Apple, some of the other names too. Microsoft looks like it's trying to break higher here too. So that's a really nice green bar. Google as well is another big tech name that looks very close to trying to break higher. It's been kind of quiet, Google, but there it is. And Meta is another name too. They're all seem to be kind of participating pretty decently today. And Meta continues to kind of grind higher, is now back into that range right before it reported earnings. I'll leave it there, guys. I think that it's basically for me, whenever we have a big days of event, I try to be cognizant of the risk. I took off a couple positions, some into strength, some, you always go through the portfolio and kind of take the least ones off. This is our watch list, which has been doing pretty well. Again, it had a real good day yesterday. Added a few names in there. I'm looking at PWR. I'm going out a little bit outside of tech, which is difficult right now. But I like this power name in here. This is Quanta Services. This is a name I've traded a bunch. And let's see if we can get back above the 50-day moving average. And then just an aerospace name that's on my radar too, which has been a very strong aerospace name, is FTAI. That looks ripe for new highs. Remember, I think I mentioned Dick's Sporting Goods. I did trade this today. I think it looks pretty good. I did take a couple targets just because we've had those events for tomorrow. Again, on a day where we've got, for tomorrow where we've got a lot of events, even if they're small profits, I'm happy to put them in my pocket, see what kind of events we get tomorrow, and then of course still have that watch list dialed in. Guys, have a great night. See you tomorrow.